Hi, my name is James Peters. I'm the Director of International Business Development here at VirTra. I've been working at VirTra since 2012 after retiring from a law enforcement career. When I first started with VirTra, I was a law enforcement subject matter expert for them who was assigned to not only create content for VirTra, but also to work with the hardware and software engineers to make sure that what we were delivering was as close to real as it could possibly be. Through that time frame, VirTra just happened to be developing what we now know as V-Marksmanship. So coincidentally, I was the SME in charge at the time to work with the software engineers to come up with this portion of what we offer our clients. So because of that, I have a pretty intimate knowledge of the system, how it works, what can be done, how you would be able to manipulate certain environments to be able to get some training that you just flat out cannot do on a live range because of safety issues, because of the student to trainer ratio, all of those kind of things. Also, because of the accuracy of it, it also ends up becoming a cost saver to a department down the range. You have the ability to not only shoot live rounds, both pistol, rifle, but you also have the ability to shoot less than lethal rounds, pepper ball, paintball, 40 millimeter, 37 millimeter, and even your tasers. And all of those rounds, when used within the software of V-Marksmanship, are all going to be ballistically accurate. And we'll get into a little bit of that, demonstrating it later on. But I really want to focus right now on the actual marksmanship of the rifles and the pistols within the system, show you that accuracy, talk to you about that. Why that becomes important is I'm never going to be a person who's going to stand in front of anybody and say that live fire training should go away. That just is not the case. There's been official, unofficial research out there that actually would say that no matter what, you still have to do a little bit of live fire. But what we do know is that those in-between times of the ranges, you know, some lucky departments that could be every month, some certain units that could be every week. But there's some departments out there and even some military units that may get one time throughout the year to go out to a live fire range. So how do you keep your skills up? How do you save the department money to be able to go out and be able to do that training and get that trigger time in between those ranges? And we believe that the product we offer with V-Marksmanship, because of its accuracy, is how you do that. Little piece of history: in 2014, I ended up going to Jaca, Spain to their special forces compound. They brought in every single one of their shooting instructors from all the 3 different branches within the Spanish military. And we spent an entire week doing drills on the simulator that they were coming up with while writing their marksmanship manual for their military. During that time, we counted every single shot fired because we wanted to kind of have an idea. And what we know at the time, if you took every single shot they fired and you applied a 60 cent per 5.56 round, which at the time that's about what it was costing, they would have spent a little over $4,000 US. But because we were using CO2 air and because our system is so close to reality, they used about $10 in CO2 air. So that just kind of gives you a little bit on the ammunition cost. Now, that doesn't even take into consideration that you don't have to have extra firearms instructors there, that you don't have to have medical personnel, that you don't have to have fees related to renting ranges, you don't have gasoline costs to get out to the ranges, because we all know that the ranges are being pushed farther and farther and farther away from the center of our cities. You don't have any of the issues where now all of a sudden we happen to have a torrential downpour and it's unsafe to be on the range because of mud and that kind of stuff, we can continue to train. And then obviously in this world now with social distancing and the COVID-19 epidemic and everything else, your ranges can't be as big as they normally are. So this allows you to get those trigger times, keep that social distancing going on through some of these unseen times. So having said that, let's get into why our system is accurate. Number one, the system has been independently tested by outside people other than the SMEs and the engineers here at VirTra. To be within the ballistic calculator alone is within 0.02 milliradians of the actual flight of a bullet all the way out to 2,500 meters. Why is that important? That means that the difference is a mathematical difference. It is not something that the eye or the shooter or the feel is going to interrupt the shooting. It is pretty much exactly what a real bullet is going to do during certain environmental conditions. The entire system, when you start to talk about the projectors and the shot tracking cameras and the screens and all of that, was independently tested also to be within 0.07 milliradians. That's an extremely low number also. So what we're talking about is the fact that there is a little blip on the screen that deviates between known data, ballistic data, and what our simulators are doing in real time. One of the reasons that it is so accurate is because we give you the ability to plug in the projected screen size. A lot of people, what they end up not realizing is the projected screen size is extremely important to know, because then all of my images are going to be accurate. If I just have a screen that I say is 5 meters tall, well, if it's actually projecting at 5.2 meters, now all of a sudden my images and my calculations and everything else are off. So the first thing that you plug into the user interface is, what is your projected screen size? The next thing that we do is we give you the ability to move your firing line accordingly. The reason that is important is because on a lot of our portable systems, I may come into one room today where I have the ability to have a 3-meter firing line, and I may come into another training environment next week where I have the ability to have a 25-meter firing line. That allows me to set my firing line to where I'm going to conduct my training for the day, and be accurate and fall within those numbers that we talked about, that 0.02 and that 0.07 number. Now, having come from a law enforcement background, understanding ballistics and understanding weapons and understanding shooting, I knew that there were some very important features that needed to be within the marksmanship. One of those features is the weapon. We needed to be able to have all of the measurements of the weapon, because if we didn't have the measurements, then we can't actually call ourselves ballistically accurate, because the minute I change one of those things, then all of a sudden that is no longer accurate when you start, especially when you start shooting out to distance. So on our weapons, we have the ability to program in the sight height. So you have your point of aim, point of impact correct, the zero range that you want, the caliber that the weapon is going to be firing, the barrel twist, and the barrel length. Like everybody knows that I have certain accuracies with a 10-inch barreled rifle, but when I throw in a 20-inch barreled rifle with the same barrel twist, now all of a sudden that becomes a more accurate rifle out to distance. So that's number one to be able to plug in. Now within that, one of the things that I also knew was important was, what were your environmental conditions at the time you zeroed? So we have it defaulted so that whatever range pulls up, that is going to be your zero default. However, for the more experienced, more advanced shooters, more advanced trainers, we have the ability for you to go in and plug in a certain temperature, a certain pressure, a certain altitude, a certain humidity, and then be able to tell your trainees, hey, when you zeroed your rifle, these are the conditions you zeroed them in. Then when you end up pulling up a range and you change those conditions, the more advanced shooters should be able to know what the fall of the bullet is going to do under those conditions. So we give you that ability also to be able to take from beginning all the way to extremely advanced shooting within the simulator. It's also important that we had all the projectile information, and it's important that we gave you the ability to plug that in. So within the projectile, there are some default ammunition in there and all of the information needed for those. However, we give you the ability to put in your own. So if today your department is shooting federal and tomorrow they're shooting Hornady TAP, you don't need to come to VirTra to come get an update with new information on the projectile. You can simply go into the projectile, into the UI where the projectile setting is, and you can end up plugging in the fired velocity, the caliber, the mass, the length, the max range of that projectile, and the ballistic coefficient. And then once you save that and you load that ammo into your weapon, you are now going to see what you see on a live fire range under whatever condition you may have. Okay, so now what we're gonna get into is we're gonna get into the demonstration portion where I talk about the accuracy, but not just talk, because anybody can put something down on paper. I'm going to actually show you guys why the system is so accurate and really kind of give you that idea of that square range type of shooting where we're all lined up and I'm shooting down range. First of all, the system does have the ability to also change how many lanes you can shoot. It can go anywhere from 1, which is being displayed right now with multiple targets, all the way up to 6 lanes. So I have the ability to have different information being recorded for each individual shooter. However, on this, I have one lane and I am on a 2,000 meter range, okay? I have my weapon set up with a sight height of 2.5 inches or 6.35 centimeters. I have my zero range of this weapon set up for 300 meters. It is programmed to be a .223 caliber rifle. It has a barrel twist of 1 7 inches. And it has a barrel length of 14 inches or 35.56 centimeters. The environmentals of this range right now are set to 64 degrees Fahrenheit with a pressure of 29.95 with an altitude of 762 meters and a humidity of 50%. Now, that is what the zero range is at. So if my trainer were to get into the environmental controls, which we'll show a little bit later on in the presentation, and change those, now all of a sudden that 300 meter zero is not going to be the same. But again, we'll get into that a little bit later on. Right now, we'll just start talking about this, and what we're also shooting is a projectile, the U.S. Army's M855 round, all of the ballistics related to that round. So the very first thing that you need to know is that I have the system programmed for a 4-meter firing line. What that means is that the computer generated world is going to begin at my firing line where I'm set. And for 4 meters, there is actually a world in there, okay? And so if I needed to shoot a target that is out beyond 4 meters, well, then I would just push that target. However, if I needed to shoot a target that was closer than 4 meters, I would simply step into that computer generated world and become closer and closer to the target. It is going to be perspectively accurate when it's at the screen all the way out to 2,000 meters. And so what we want to do now is I want to show you if I were to hold my point of aim at the bottom brim of that Ivan target's helmet and then fire one round from 4 meters away, that round is going to actually impact roughly 2.5 inches or 6.35 centimeters below the brim of the helmet. So I turn here, hold on the brim, fire one round, and now when we zoom in, what you're actually looking at is the yellow is my point of aim and the blue is my impact. And so when I bring up my rifle and show that my impact is right in line and I bring it across and show where my point of aim is, you see the accuracy of the system. If you take the center of the X's and you measure, you can check that against any ballistic calculator out there. That's why we zoom it a 1-to-1 to begin with. Now, the instructor does have the ability, if they want, to then zoom in here, making this target bigger. But once you begin that zoom, now this number is no longer correct. It's only correct when it's at a 1-to-1 ratio. All right, so we'll unzoom. We'll come back here to our firing line, and we'll take that target out to 25 meters. Now, because my weapon has a 300 meter zero, then the mechanical zero of that weapon should be out to about 25 meters. It's a little bit farther, it's like 27.2, but everybody talks about a 300 meter zero. When I take that target at 25 meters, if I'm working that mechanical zero, now that yellow X and that blue X that you guys saw should almost be on top of each other. The blue X should be a little bit lower because we're only at 25 and not 27, but I'll hold center mass. And now when we zoom into this target, you see that that blue X and that yellow X are pretty much on top of each other right now. Okay, now, once we're gonna unzoom and we're gonna take this out to some distance here, we're gonna go out to 100 meters right now. This is not a hard standing offhand shot. This is not a hard kneeling shot, anything like that. However, maybe what I wanna do is start to train from the prone position. The problem is that currently, that target, although it is prospectively accurate at 100 meters, it is still only 4 meters away from me. So if I were to drop down in the prone right now, my barrel on my rifle would have to be pointed up because I am no longer on the same plane as that target is. So one of the things that we did is we came down and we had the instructor have the ability to put the system in the kneeling or the prone to match what the shooter is at. And now you see that when I fire on my target, and we zoom in, you see that now the round is traveling roughly 5.5, 6 inches above the yellow, which is what the ballistic arc would actually have it at. Now, you see it in a straight linear position, and the reason that it's in a linear position is because right now there's no wind blowing. So if we zoom out and now we put on, say, a 10-mile-an-hour wind, now when I fire at it, and we zoom in, you see that now the impacts of those rounds as they passed by the target have been affected by that wind, okay? And just to show you, if we zoom out again, and now we increase the wind to even 20 miles an hour, you see that that push is even greater now, and it's greater because our wind speed increased. Now, if we take off the wind, another ability that the instructor has is to take any of the targets and make them into moving targets. They can have them run in a box drill. They can have them run side to side. They can have them run front to back in very short patterns. They can change the speed at which those targets are moving. However, all of the ballistics still apply to it. So if I wanted a target to run completely left to right or front to back, now, for instance, this one is running at 5 miles an hour. I can end up starting to work on moving targets while shooting. And then this is where you start to progress into using things on the range and then getting into a simulator where now you're shooting at moving targets that look like people, look like objects that you would normally and appropriately be shooting at downrange. Finally, we're going to take this target, we're going to run it all the way to 300 meters. We're going to put it in the prone. Now, certain targets with certain environmental backgrounds may be easy or not easy to see for a shooter. And so we give the ability for the instructor to go ahead and highlight that target so that the shooter can see it. The other thing that we do is we add what we call a fall of shot. And the fall of shot is where as the bullet passes the target, if it hits it, it's going to flash green. If it misses it, it's going to flash red. That way the shooter can stay on their shot follow through as opposed to trying to find where exactly their shot missed. So if I get down and I fire at my target, I have a red miss, a red miss, and a green hit. So I was able to stay on my shot follow through all through those 3 shots. Again, if the instructor zooms in, you're going to end up seeing that we are now at point of aim and point of impact. When you look at the first 2 shots that I fired, which flashed red here and here, and then you had the 3rd shot that I fired dead center, which flashed green. And at 300 meters, we have now come back into our shot. Now again, that target can be run out to 2,000 meters. It can be run out anywhere along that lines, and the shot is now going to be below that point of aim again because my arc is starting to fall off. Everything we just talked about is from firing from that firing line and is specifically related to that accuracy of 0.07 or 0.02 milliradians just within the ballistic calculator alone. However, now we're going to get into opening up your eyes and seeing what we can do with this system. Okay, now that we've talked about the ballistic accuracy and showed you some of that kind of stuff, I also want to show you some of the different environmental conditions that you have the ability to shoot or train in. Obviously, this is daytime. The instructor has, in the environmental controls, has a basic mode and an advanced mode. Within the basic mode, those are all preset settings. So they have the ability to change the time of day from whether it's dawn, dusk, night, mid-afternoon. He can just, with a simple click of the button, I don't have to come out of training. I don't have to come out of the UI. I can just click it in there. He has the ability to add wind. at some preset conditions, whether it be 5, 10, 15, 20, all the way up to 30 miles an hour. And you can see the environmentals are going to be affected by that wind too. You're going to get dust starting to blow in. If you had trees on the range, you're going to have the trees starting to sway and all of that kind of stuff. He also has the ability to bring in rain, or even snow. Now, on a range that has no snow, then it's going to be rain, and he can make that heavy rain, he can make that light rain, whatever I want to do. If I started to throw in wind, you're going to see the rain start to go sideways just like it would in real life. If I was on a range that had snow, then the rain would end up being snow. It wouldn't end up being rain. It would be according to whatever the range is actually presenting. The other thing that he does is he has the ability to go to nighttime, and then especially for our military clients out there, he has the ability to pop illumination flares. The same type of environment that they would be shooting in real life. Again, you're seeing that fall. If he goes ahead and throws on wind right now, what you're going to see is that even the illumination flare is going to be affected by the amount of wind that he has placed in there. Okay, he also has, and that is all within the basic environmentals. The trainer has the ability to get really in depth and go into the advanced. Now, in the advanced mode, he can do everything that he just showed you. He can have it be daylight. He can have it be morning, afternoon, but he controls that instead of clicking just a preset button by actually controlling the time of day. One of the things that this system does is if I set it at 6 a.m. and I put a camera here and we trained all day and I never shut it down, the sun is going to go up and come down and the stars are going to come out and everything is going to happen just like it normally would. The other ability that they have is to take the range and actually spin it 360 degrees within that world. So if I have set it at a certain latitude and longitude, but I want that range to end up facing directly into the sun, I would find the correct time of day where that range or the sun would be peaking over the range, and then I would turn the range accordingly so that it was actually facing into the sun. Again, the temperature, the pressure, the altitude, the humidity, all of that can be changed to whatever you want it to be within the advanced setting. The other thing that he has the ability to do in the advanced setting is set in the amount of precipitation. He can adjust that along a bar. He can turn on the lightning and crank it all the way up, and you'll end up seeing lightning and thunder in the backgrounds. So that's just some of the environmentals that you can go and train in and be able to mimic real life. And again, it's going to affect the ballistics just like it would in real life. The rain is not what affects the ballistics, it's the humidity, it's the pressure, it's the altitude, it's the temperature. All of those things are what is actually affecting the ballistics. All right, so now that we've kind of talked about all of the intricacies of the V-Marksmanship software and what makes it so accurate and how you can utilize it to do the same exact thing you can do on a square range, now what I want to do is start getting into the actual opening up your mind and showing you that really the limitations are only within your mind. The capabilities of the system and what we can do and what we can replicate and what you can do inside of your training environment, it really is what you should be thinking is not that I want to think outside the box, but I want to believe that a box doesn't exist. And so now we're going to get away from the accuracy when we talk about the ballistic accuracy. and we're gonna get into what you actually can do here. So the very first thing I'm gonna do is show you the paper target, why that's important. So I'm gonna transition from my rifle to my pistol in the middle of this to show you that you can shoot multiple targets or multiple weapons on the target. But what I'm also gonna show you is the different impacts. So for instance, I am going to shoot at the center chest area of that target with my rifle, and you're gonna see that those impact rounds or the holes in the target are the size of a .223 or 5.56. And then I'm gonna transition to my Glock 17, and I'll shoot those rounds in the head, and you'll see that those are gonna be the size of a 9mm round. So here we go. Next, we're gonna show you that the system will actually track 180 degrees around the screen. So this will show you that it really opens up your training environment. You're not just sitting here training while on the X. So if I walk up here flat to the screen, aim at that red target on the edge of the screen, see that I'm still able. So now this whole thing becomes my training environment. Allows me to, shoot from the ground. It allows me to move around, put tables in here. I can add actors so that I'm shooting at the target, but I need to miss the people in this environment. I can bring in red man suits so that I can start to work with the hands-on techniques and being able to transition to a deadly force situation, or a taser or some other less lethal device. So as I talked to you about before, the fact is that this system is ballistically accurate for even our less lethal weapons like a taser. So on an X2 taser, if I point at the taser targeting target there at the edge, I turn my cartridge A on and I fire. You see that the barbs deploy. I see the arc in between the barbs. Now I go to transition to my second cartridge and I fire, and you see that those barbs are deployed also. And now, just like a real X2 taser, I can reach up and re-arc these, and you see that it's going to re-arc and show those downrange. Okay? Pepper ball. So you're using your real pepper ball device, whether it's an FN 303, whether it's a paintball type of device. But we attach the laser to it, and now what you're gonna see is I'm going to shoot marker rounds, red marker rounds on the two outside human torsos, and then I'm gonna shoot pepper ball rounds to the center guy, or the center torso target. Okay, so now we're able to start training in some of the environments that even our riot control police don't really have a lot of opportunity to train, and I can't really make any kind of standard in the environmentals so that they have an idea of how fast that pepper ball cloud is going to disperse during different environmental conditions. Now I can start to do some of these training. I can add people in here with shields. I can do different things to recreate environments that they'll actually be working in. And then finally we have our 40mm or 37mm. This happens to be a single tube. We take you can have multiple of these rounds in a multi-tube. But what you're gonna see here is the fact that I can insert the round. And the first 4 rounds on this are really for our military customers with the HE explosives. So I'll insert that and I'll start to fire that round. Okay, and now the next 4 rounds would be our grenadiers or some actual gas deployment. So I can actually end up putting gas down out far. If my crowd is out back, you see that it's going to kick up. I've got a slight breeze kicked on, so the gas is going to deploy like it normally would. I can work on firing it through windows into residences, or I can actually put it down to start to work on a concealment type of event if I needed to. So it kind of gives you the option and the ability and the idea that really that you can expand on your training and have huge cost savings as you do it. Okay, one of the things that VirTra has recently implemented into the V-Marksmanship and really across the board, but we're going to talk specifically about V-Marksmanship now, is what we call our shot timer, or what you would know it as a pack timer. The ability to take down the split times, the overall time that it takes to transition between targets is simple within the UI without clicking out of V-Marksmanship. You just click on a button on the UI that pulls up the shot timer. Once the shot timer presents itself, you end up having a green or play timer in the upper left, and you have a red or a cup stop button. The way that the shot timer works is that the student, the trainee, doesn't need the instructor over there interacting or starting it or anything else. I'm simply going to shoot the green or play button. I'm then it's going to reset all my times, it's going to reset all my targets, and then I'm going to go ahead and it's going to give me a buzz, at which time the timer starts. So if I turn here with the rifle and I come up on target, I shoot the green. Shooter ready, stand by. So right now, as you can see, it's got my first split time. So from buzzer to first shot, 1.227 seconds. I had 6 total shots. You see the difference in between shot 4 and shot 3 because those are the split times up till there. I had a transition in there. My total time on target was 5.329 seconds. So again, taking it down to 100ths of a second. It's showing that I hit the targets. I had 6 hits within the target. Now, as we've been talking, if I were to pull out, whether it be a different gun or anything else, and I shoot, it's going to add to that overall time, okay? However, if when I get done here, I shoot the red stop button up in the top, now you don't see any difference. However, if I shot, you can see it's not tracking on the timer anymore, okay? So again, the green is what starts your split timer. It's kind of your reset. You're gonna get a randomized beep, so you can't game it. And then you have your red, which is gonna stop it and allow you to record and document the different times. So I can set up all of the ranges that I would normally do in out on a square range, using a pack timer, testing my reload transitions, my shots, my split times, everything else, and start to begin some competition too. All right, so for the last portion of this and the last training bit that I want to do, it's more of just to show you and open up your mind and continue down that road that I really don't want you to believe in thinking outside the box. I want you to believe in a box doesn't exist. And I'm just wanting to show you the capabilities here. So what I've done is attached a GoPro to the side of this rifle. I'm going to walk out into our warehouse. It's going to be approximately 48 meters or 52 yards away from this screen, and I'm going to be firing at that red target. Again, you'll be able to see it on both the reaction on the target so that you know this isn't made up or anything like this. It's just the fact that I now can extend my training platform and where I'm able to go. So here we go. Okay, so again, the whole point of that was just to open up your minds and show you the capabilities that you can do inside the system, not just how accurate it is, but if you are thinking, that no box exists and your training venue allows for it, what you're seeing there is the fact that I can now start to provide sniper overwatch while I'm doing other things, things that we sometimes in training compartmentalize, but we aren't able to bring them all together because of, whether it be space, whether it be budgets, whether it be time, whatever that may be. But hopefully what we've shown you today is going to be able to enhance your training and be able to provide you with some ideas on where you can actually take your training to.